Since 1930, the globe has sent its absolute best to the World Cup.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we are talking about thousands of the greatest athletes to ever live, right? Billions of dollars in infrastructure, and just entire nations bringing their collective willpower to this one single summer tournament.
It's massive.
It really is. But here's the crazy part. In nearly a century of play, over 22 tournaments out of the entire globe, only 8 countries have ever won the trophy. Just 8.
It's a wildly small number when you think about it.
Right. Welcome to the deep dive. With the 2026 tournament currently blanketing the United States, Canada, and Mexico, you're watching 48 nations clash in real time.
Yeah, right now.
Exactly. But to truly understand what you are seeing on the pitch today, you have to understand the ghosts these teams are chasing.
Right, because it's not just about today's players.
Exactly. You have to understand how those 8 legacy nations built an absolute monopoly on global football, and the tactical warfare they use to keep the door locked. It's like the world's most exclusive VIP room.
That is a great way to put it.
So, okay, let's unpack this. How did this incredibly exclusive club even form in the first place? Because, I mean, looking at the early history, it kind of seems like whoever hosted the tournament essentially just bought themselves a championship.
Right, well, it definitely looks that way on paper, but there is a distinct mechanical reason for it that goes far beyond just a crowd cheering for the home team.
Okay, so what was really happening then?
Well, if we look at the inaugural 1930 tournament won by the host, Uruguay, and then Italy's back-to-back victories in 1934 and 1938, with 1934 being on their home soil, obviously we aren't just seeing the power of hosting.
Right.
We're seeing the massive logistical realities of the early 20th century. I mean, in the 1930s, transatlantic travel literally meant spending weeks on a boat.
Oh, wow, weeks just to get to the game.
Exactly. So visiting teams arrived physically depleted and tactically isolated. They were exhausted. Mm-hmm. But beyond the logistics, these early eras were defined by a massive gap in professionalization.
What do you mean by that? Like some teams just weren't taking it seriously?
Sort of. I mean, Uruguay had already won back-to-back Olympic gold medals before 1930 because they were one of the first nations to truly centralize and professionalize their domestic game.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, they were essentially playing a structured, modern sport while much of the world was still treating it as a disjointed amateur exhibition.
So the early founders of the club didn't just have home field advantage, they were quite literally playing a different game.
Exactly.
But then we hit this massive tragic pause. The 1942 and 1946 tournaments are canceled entirely due to World War II.
Right.
So a full dozen years go by. And when the tournament returns in 1950, Brazil hosts it. And they lose the final to Uruguay in what is still considered one of the most shocking upsets in sports history.
Right, the Americanazo.
Yeah. So I have to push back a bit on the idea of early home dominance here. I mean, if the host advantage was so impenetrable, how does a tiny nation like Uruguay walk into the Maracanã Stadium in front of, 200,000 screaming Brazilians and snatch the trophy?
Well, because that 1950 final exposes the absolute psychological terror of the World Cup.
Psychological terror? That's intense.
It really is. Because the pressure of playing at home can be a 12th man, sure, but it can also be a paralyzing weight.
Ah, right. All those expectations.
Exactly. Tactically, Uruguay exploited Brazil's heavy reliance on all-out attack by utilizing a highly disciplined defensive structure. They just absorbed relentless pressure and hit them on the counter.
Wow.
And the psychological scar of that loss was so profound for Brazil that they literally changed the color of their national kits.
Wait, really? Because of one game?
Yeah. They threw away their white uniforms, which they associated with the defeat, and adopted the iconic yellow and green we see today. That moment forced Brazil to completely rethink their entire footballing identity.
That is wild. Which perfectly sets up 1954, where we see another massive tactical evolution. West Germany beats the mighty Hungarian team, the Magical Magyars, in the Miracle of Bern.
Right, a legendary game.
Yeah, and from the source material, Hungary had this revolutionary system where their center forward would drop deep into the midfield, completely confusing traditional man-to-man marking.
Yeah, they were brilliant.
It seems like Hungary had completely solved the tactical puzzle of the era. So how did West Germany actually pull off that miracle?
Well, it came down to a brilliant mix of tactical adaptation and sheer technological innovation.
Oh, technology. In 1954.
Yeah. So Hungary was indeed light years ahead with their withdrawn forward system, effectively creating a modern false modal muddy 9 decades before the term even existed.
Right.
But the final was played in a torrential downpour. The pitch was an absolute swamp.
Just totally flooded.
Exactly. And West Germany had a secret weapon. They were outfitted by a relatively new company called Adidas, which provided boots with screw-in studs.
Are you serious? Screw-in studs.
Yeah. So while the brilliant Hungarians were slipping in the mud, the West Germans literally had better traction. They could pivot, tackle, and accelerate in conditions that totally neutralized Hungary's fluid passing game.
That is incredible. The first major tactical disruption was defeated by a footwear upgrade.
It really is a perfect example of how marginal gains can completely rewrite history.
Wow. But that brings us to 1958, and this is where the timeline completely fractures. We get the arrival of Brazil, but specifically a 17-year-old phenomenon named Pelé.
Oh, Pelé, yes.
Brazil wins in 1958, they win again in 1962, and they cap it off with arguably the greatest team of all time in 1970.
Absolutely.
Now, everyone always talks about Pelé's individual brilliance, but I refuse to believe a 17-year-old just stepped onto a pitch and willed a nation to 3 World Cups without an underlying systemic shift. I mean, what was actually happening beneath the hood of that Brazilian team?
What's fascinating here is that the global narrative often romanticizes the individual
Right.
while ignoring the machine behind him.
Right, exactly.
Yes, Pelé was a generational anomaly, obviously. But Brazil dominated because they fundamentally altered the spatial dynamics of the sport.
Okay, how so?
Well, before 1958, most of Europe was playing incredibly rigid formations, usually a variation of the WM system, which was very static. Players had strict zones.
Gooseball almost.
Exactly, yeah, very rigid. But Brazil introduced the 4-2-4 formation. And crucially, they introduced the concept of the overlapping fullback.
Wait, explain what you mean by overlapping fullback in this context.
So in European systems, defenders defended. Full stop. That was their job.
Right.
Brazil looked at the pitch and realized that if their outside defenders players like Nilton Santos sprinted forward to join the attack, they created massive numerical overloads.
Oh, so they outnumbered them on offense.
Precisely. And the rigid European man-marking system simply could not process it. The European defenders didn't know who to track.
That makes so much sense.
Yeah, and Pelé operated in that newly created chaotic space.
Oh.
He wasn't just dribbling past people for the fun of it. He was exploiting the gaps created by a radically fluid, dynamic team structure. They didn't just play better, they transformed the geometry of the game.
I look at that era, 1958 to 1970, and it feels a lot like artisanal craftsmen perfecting their trade. Brazil's fluid style, their ginga, was like a beautiful, handcrafted work of art.
Yeah, it was beautiful to watch.
And it was something the industrialized European teams just couldn't replicate. I mean, it was like the Beatles redefining music, a complete paradigm shift.
Oh, that's a perfect analogy.
And the only interruption in that entire run was England winning on home soil in 1966. But for the most part, Brazil completely broke the sport.
It did.
Which leads to the obvious question. If Brazil had essentially solved football with their fluid 4-2-4 and overlapping runs, how did the rest of the world figure out how to stop them?
Well, they realized they couldn't out-artisan the artisans.
Right. You can't out Brazil.
Exactly. So the rest of the world turned to industrialized structure and raw grit. This initiates a completely new era from 1974 to 1994, which I like to think of as the Great Tug of War.
The Great Tug of War. I like that.
Yeah, because the tactical response to Brazil's fluidity was to completely suffocate the space on the pitch. We see West Germany win in 1974, Argentina in 1978, Italy 1982, Argentina again in 1986, West Germany in 1990, and then Brazil finally clawing back in 1994.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. Look at those names.
Yeah, it's a tight list.
Over a 20-year span, the most prestigious trophy in sports only bounced between 4 nations: Germany, Argentina, Italy, and Brazil.
Just 4.
The bouncer isn't just keeping new people out of the club, he's aggressively kicking out anyone who tries to learn the new rules. It feels like an incredibly ruthless consolidation of power.
It really was.
Was this just the result of a massive talent gap, or was there a specific methodology these 4 countries were using to lock out the rest of the world?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this 20-year span was defined by the perfection of defensive systems and the reliance on solitary, iconic superstars to break them.
Okay, break that down for me.
Well, in 1974, West Germany won by utilizing the ultimate structural countermeasure: the libero, or sweeper, perfected by Franz Beckenbauer.
The sweeper.
Right. He sat behind the defensive line, cleaning up any mistakes and orchestrating from the back. Then Italy won in 1982 by leaning into catenaccio, which translates to the doorbolt defense.
The doorbolt. Sounds intense.
It was a highly cynical, physical, man-marking system designed to destroy the opponent's rhythm and punish them on rapid counterattacks.
So if defense became that industrialized, that impenetrable, how on earth did anyone score?
And that is exactly why this era is defined by the individual legend. When the systems became too perfect to break down collectively, nations had to build their entire strategy around protecting one transcendent genius who could break the rules.
Right.
The ultimate example is Diego Maradona for Argentina in 1986.
See, this is exactly what I want to dig into, because people talk about the '86 World Cup as if Maradona just strapped 11 men to his back and dragged them up a mountain.
They do say that.
But surely Argentina's manager, Carlos Bilardo, wasn't just crossing his fingers and hoping Maradona did something cool.
Not at all.
Mm.
Bilardo was a brilliant, pragmatic tactician. He realized that against European defensive blocks, traditional formations just wouldn't work anymore.
Okay.
So he implemented a revolutionary 3-5-2 system. He packed the midfield with aggressive, tireless workers, often referred to as water carriers, whose sole job was to destroy the opponent's possession, win the ball, and immediately feed it to Maradona.
Wow. So they did the dirty work.
Exactly. By playing three center backs, Bilardo ensured the defense was secure, giving Maradona complete tactical freedom. He didn't have to track back. He didn't have to hold a defensive line.
Just roam.
Yeah. He was the artisanal craftsman operating within a heavily fortified, industrialized factory.
That's a phenomenal way to look at it. You have the rigid German machine on one side and the Argentine defensive fortress built around a solitary genius on the other. But eventually, even that model reaches its breaking point. As we approach the turn of the millennium, the source materials point to a massive paradigm shift starting in 1998.
Yeah, a huge shift.
The center of gravity in global football definitively leaves South America and anchors itself in Europe. France wins its first World Cup in 1998. Then we see this relentless wave. Italy in 2006, Spain in 2010, Germany in 2014, and France again in 2018.
Total domination.
Yeah, South America is effectively shut out for 2 decades. Why did Europe suddenly gain this overwhelming upper hand?
Because Europe stopped relying on generational luck and started systematizing the production of talent.
Systematizing it like a business.
Very much so. After struggling in previous decades, countries like France and Germany completely overhauled their youth development from the ground up. In France, it was the creation of the Clairefontaine Academy.
I've heard of that.
Yeah, it was a centralized national institute designed to produce technically flawless, highly athletic players from a very young age. And Germany did something similar in the early 2000s with a massive initiative called Das Reboot, mandating that every professional club invest millions into elite youth academies.
So instead of hoping a kid like Pele or Maradona emerges from a local neighborhood, they basically built an assembly line to manufacture complete footballers.
Precisely. And this hyper-industrialization of talent allowed for incredibly sophisticated tactics.
Like what?
Well, look at Spain winning their first ever World Cup in 2010. They utilized tiki-taka, a system based on rapid, short passing and maintaining absolute possession of the ball.
Right, like playing a massive game of keep away.
Exactly. It wasn't just an attacking style. It was the ultimate defense. The logic was literally, if we always have the ball, you cannot score.
That's brilliant.
But to execute tiki-taka under World Cup pressure, you need 11 players who possess the exact same elite technical blueprint. South American teams, who were still heavily relying on individual flair and disjointed domestic leagues, simply could not press effectively enough to get the ball back.
So Spain was playing keep away on a global scale. Yeah. And then Germany takes it a step further in 2014. They didn't just want possession. They wanted to suffocate you the second they lost it. They utilized high pressing or gegenpressing.
Oh, yeah.
It's a terrifying system to watch. The moment they lose the ball, the entire team swarms the opponent like a hive of angry bees. You don't even have a second to look up before 3 German players are tackling you.
And that requires supreme physical conditioning, deep squads, and absolute tactical synchronicity. This is why Europe dominated. They turned the World Cup into a test of institutional infrastructure.
Right.
Which is why the climax of the 2022 tournament in Qatar is arguably the most fascinating tactical clash in the history of the sport.
Because Argentina finally breaks the European stranglehold. They beat the defending champions, France, in a 3-3 draw that went to penalties.
An unbelievable game.
Truly. And of course, Lionel Messi gets his fairy tale ending. But I have to ask, if Europe had perfected the industrialized football factory and South America had been left behind tactically for 20 years, how did Argentina win?
It's a great question.
Did they just revert back to the 1986 strategy of defend deeply and pray the genius does something?
No, and that is the beauty of Argentina's 2022 victory. They didn't revert to the past. They synthesized the two eras.
Synthesized them? How?
Well, Argentina's manager, Lionel Scaloni, realized that Messi at 35 years old could not press like a modern European player. He couldn't sprint for 90 minutes.
Right, obviously.
So Scaloni built a deeply modern European-style engine room in his midfield with players like Enzo Fernandez and Alexis McAllister, who were trained in European pressing systems.
Ah, I see.
Yeah, they did the high-intensity running and pressing required to neutralize France's athleticism. They operated the factory, so Messi could be the artisan in the final third.
Oh, wow.
It was the perfect marriage of modern industrialized tactics and South American individual brilliance.
That is so cool. So what does this all mean? Let's bring this right up to the present moment. It is 2026. The World Cup is happening right now in North America.
Yeah, it's everywhere right now.
And the biggest, most seismic change in the history of the tournament has just occurred. The field has expanded from 32 teams to 48 teams.
A huge jump.
We just spent 20 minutes discussing how, over nearly a century, only 8 nations have possessed the infrastructure, the tactical innovation, and the psychological resilience to win this tournament. Now, suddenly, you have 40 teams trying to crash the gates against these 8 legacy bouncers.
Yeah, and this raises an important question, and it is the exact tactical puzzle that every manager is trying to solve right now. Does expanding the tournament mathematically increase the chances of an underdog making a miraculous run, or does it actually make the legacy nations even more untouchable?
See, my instinct is that more teams equal more chaos, which should favor an underdog, right?
Yeah.
Like a Cinderella story in a massive bracket.
It sounds logical, for sure, but the underlying mechanisms of the sport suggest the exact opposite. Yeah. A 48-team tournament adds an extra layer to the knockout stages. To win the World Cup now, a team has to play 8 matches instead of 7, spread across massive geographic distances in the US, Mexico, and Canada.
Right. The travel is insane.
We are talking about different time zones, varied altitudes, and drastic climate shifts.
Ah, I see where this is going. The physical toll.
Exactly. The attrition rate is going to be brutal. When you add more matches and travel, the tournament becomes less about the brilliant starting 11 and entirely about squad depth and physical periodization.
So the bench matters more than ever.
Exactly. If an underdog country like Morocco or Japan has a miraculous run, by the time they reach the quarterfinals, their star players are going to be playing on heavy legs. Meanwhile, a legacy nation like France or Brazil can seamlessly rotate 5 world-class players off their bench who play for top Champions League clubs.
Wow.
The sheer industrialized depth of the traditional powers is engineered to survive long, grueling campaigns.
It's like bringing a beautifully crafted knife to a battle of attrition against a tank battalion.
That's a great way to put it.
I mean, the knife might be brilliant early on, but eventually the sheer mass of the tank wins. If you're listening right now, taking in these matches, you now have the ultimate lens to view this tournament.
You really do.
You aren't just watching 22 players kick a ball, you are watching the culmination of nearly a century of tactical warfare. From Uruguay's early centralization to Brazil's geometry-breaking wingerless formations, down to the ruthless European pressing machines and Argentina's hybrid masterpiece.
It's all connected.
It is. Every time a team from outside that exclusive club of 8 steps onto the pitch, they are fighting against deep, institutionalized historical gravity.
And, as you watch the unwritten chapter of 2026 unfold, I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over.
Okay, let's hear it.
We've seen that the defining trait of a World Cup champion isn't just having the best players, it's the ability to impose their specific reality onto the rest of the world. With the chaos of 48 teams, shifting time zones, and expanded knockout rounds, we might be entering an era where tactical brilliance takes a backseat to pure sports science and endurance.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. The next nation to join the exclusive Winners Club might not be the one that invents a new formation, but the one that best engineers the human body to survive the most grueling sporting spectacle ever created.
That is a terrifying and thrilling thought. The evolution of dominance never stops. Keep that history, those tactical shifts, and the weight of the 8 legacy nations in mind as you watch the rest of the 2026 matches. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time.